Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. In times of great struggle and unrest, when it feels like everything is going wrong, when the entire world seems like it's falling apart, what we need, what we hope for, is a hero. And somehow, someway, during many dark times in history, such men and women have risen to lead the meek through the valley of death back into the light. And hey, the past few months have been really tough, and I know that a lot of you out there are struggling. But today's video is no lament, no requiem. No, instead it's an ode. It is a song of praise to a newly ascended hero. His name is Barry Bend. See, we often ask y'all for suggestions about what content you want to see on this channel. Your feedback is what we rely on to make popular videos. But of course we can't get to every suggestion. So about a year and a half ago, Mr. Barry Bend first brought up the anime Dimension Fortress Macross, which was adapted into the first season of what became the series Robotech in the West. I never answered Barry back then, so he brought it up again. Still no answer. Actually, we've never answered Barry. Truth is, we just didn't have the time to fit it into our programming. We'd have to watch the series and take notes and so on, and that takes time, but we were reading and taking note of each one of his comments. And where weaker, less principled men might have given in, Barry never gave up. Never. Over the past year and a half, he has bombarded our video comment sections with request after request to cover Macross and its famous ship, the SDF-1. He fought the good fight, so the rest of you didn't have to. And unfortunately, Barry passed away recently. He never got to see the video that he was hoping for. So Barry, wherever you are out there, I want you to know I watched every episode of the Macross Saga. Well, admittedly, even though you didn't want me to, it was the Western version Robotech, but still I watched the show. And I took copious notes on the SDF-1 in your honor. I love you, Barry Bend. Your heroics have saved us all. Okay, I can't carry on with this. Barry's not dead, but I thought it would make for a good sob story. Nonetheless, I have nothing but respect for you, Barry, so sit back and pop open a cold one. This one is for you, good sir. For those who don't know, Dimension Fortress Macross's story begins in the late 90s, the future when the series came out in the early 1980s. An Earth beset by war is united by an alien ship that crashes into Macross Island in the South Pacific. Despite crashing into Earth, the ship remained relatively intact. Listen, physics are not this show's strong point. Anyway, the advanced technology within the ship engendered fear among humans that an advanced alien race was out there somewhere in the cosmos that could wipe them all out. So humanity came together under the United Earth government, which commissioned a research team to study and restore the ship. This team named the vessel the SDF-1, or Dimension Fortress 1. In studying the ship, human scientists discovered robotechnology, an advanced technology that the United Earth government used to build its entire military, replete with all sorts of different ships and mecha. However, with great power comes great enemies. And before long, an alien race known as the Zentradi, a giant humanoid species that doesn't have sex, invaded the Earth in pursuit of the SDF-1. And the ensuing war between humanity and these aliens makes up the majority of the narrative in Macross. Well, that and all sorts of weird intertwining dramatic love stories surrounding my main man, the stud, Long Dick Rick Hunter, a young stunt pilot who through a series of serendipitous events ended up becoming an ace fighter pilot in the United Earth government's forces. The show is pretty cool. There's cool ships, great battles, and some heavy moments that reflect the very real brutality of human innocence among war. For me personally, the show basically seesawed back and forth between, whoa, that was really cool, and what the hell did I just watch?
You cannot conquer love. Observe the power of protoculture.
Oh, and by the way, do people actually like that song that Lin Minmay sings over and over and over again? Because if I hear it one more time, I think I'm gonna go crazy.
My dream has finally come true.
Die. Anyway, I'm losing focus here. On to the ship at the center of the show, the SDF-1. The over 1,200 meter long ship was the most important ship in humanity's war against the Zentradi. As a matter of fact, ship is just one term you can use to describe the SDF-1. It might be more appropriate to call it a mobile fortress as its name indicates. When the ship first left Earth after being restored, Captain Henry Gloval had the crew of the SDF-1 initiate a hyperspace fold jump, or an instant position jump, in order to get out of dodge of the Zentradi, and in doing so they transported the entirety of Macross City and its population of about 70,000 people with them. The crew of the SDF-1 then rebuilt Macross City within the confines of the ship. Now, does this make sense in terms of mathematics, physics, or any other known science? No, but neither did any of the 1980s. Anyway, the SDF-1 was basically a colony ship in that an entire civilization existed on board and lived their lives pretty much as they might back on Earth. They even had an artificial sky. While the ship was only 1,200 meters on the outside, it was a behemoth within. It seemed that in every episode I was introduced to a new room, new compartment, or other area inside the ship. At one point, Rick and Minmay got lost in the ship, so lost that their lives were in danger given their isolation and lack of nourishment. Now, this is not something that one would think could happen on a ship that's less than a mile long, but Minmay had less than 2 IQ points on a good day and Rick was in love. Okay, you know me, my friends. If we're gonna cover a ship, we gotta start with the bridge, where Captain Gloval, that fine wine of a man, commanded a small crew of officers who sat around the bridge using radar and other tracking systems to monitor everything going on inside and outside of the ship. Not sure why this lady needs to sit so close to a giant screen, but I digress. The radar systems on the bridge were supplemented by a variety of dedicated control and radar rooms throughout the ship. Somewhere in the range of 3,500 crew manned the vessel and worked in a variety of capacities that we rarely witnessed related to operating the ship and keeping track of space around it. Getting back to the bridge though, when radar couldn't do the trick, the command crew had a reconnaissance drone they could deploy to scout out areas as well. As far as communication goes, the officers on the bridge had access to a variety of long-range video and audio communication technology. One of the coolest functions of the videocom tech is that officers on the bridge could video conference with their fighter pilots amidst battle and send them real-time info and analytics. Given the high-tech communication equipment on the bridge and throughout the ship, I'm not sure why it was also necessary to have a conventional telephone installed as well. Maybe a secure line? There's 3 other things I can think of that were amiss in the SDF-1's bridge as well. The first was that it had a window that looked directly outside where it should have had a view screen instead. Looking at in front of you in space is kind of pointless. That said, when needed, the other screens in the bridge could double as view screens. The second issue was that the seats in the bridge didn't appear to be configured for high-G burns. There was no seat belts or anything. The crew was unsecured at all times. And finally, there was no smoking allowed on the bridge, and I feel like that was an antiquated rule that had little utility.
Captain Glover!
Yes, what is it, Sandy?
No smoking on the bridge! It's against regulations, sir.
I was just...
Anyway, from the bridge, the command crew directed all of the operations of the ship, including its movement. Speaking of which, the SDF-1 could fly both in atmosphere and out. In atmosphere, it had a variety of gravity control systems that helped it along, though these systems were apparently easily disabled with gravity mines. When taking off, the ship engaged its assortment of engines in sequence that thrusted the ship into space. The ship also had standby boosters that it could use should the main engines fail, and the backups never failed because, well...
I hope the standby boosters work.
Their work, Lisa. They were made on Earth. All right?
My man. The ship also had backup generators that could restore power to the ship's systems as well. Okay, now let's move on to more offensive things, like this goddamn cousin-kissing hippie. Oh wait, misread the script there. Offensive as in offensive capabilities. So it seemed like a rather slow and arduous process, but when the ship prepared to go on the attack, it had to transform into its battle mode, which took a bit of time but ultimately resulted in the SDF turning itself into a super cool mecha. In this mode, it could operate all of its weaponry while still maintaining some flight capability. The SDF-1 had an assortment of point defense particle cannons, rail cannons, turrets, torpedoes, and missiles. However, its most important weapons were its main gun and its right arm. Its main gun was a reflex cannon that functioned by building up energy above the mecha's head and between the firing booms on its shoulders, and then firing a heavy particle beam, which, while it might have taken a minute to actually get going, once it fired, it just obliterated everything. Then, the SDF-1's right arm was known as the Daedalus. The SDF-1's crew could use the Daedalus as a special weapon by concentrating the energy from the ship's energy shield, known as its pinpoint barrier, to the front of its right arm, which would then punch through the bulkhead of an enemy ship. Once it punctured through its target, a door on the end of its arm would open up to reveal an army of battloids, which would then collectively unleash fire on the inside of the enemy vessel, destroying it. For last resort scenarios, the SDF-1 was also loaded with reflex warheads that it could disperse from compartments throughout its body and detonate, causing a cataclysmic explosion while using its energy shield to protect itself from the blast. Speaking of the ship's energy shield, let's talk defense. When the Macross Saga started out, the crew of the SDF-1 was stuck with something called a pinpoint barrier to defend itself from incoming fire. The pinpoint barrier was a laser deflection system that created energy barriers on the outside of the ship, which could be controlled by hand using universal gyros in some sort of control room. This was a completely ridiculous system. The operator would have to rapidly move the relatively small barriers around to catch all of the incoming fire. Not only did the pinpoint barrier not cover the entire ship, but it was also energy inefficient, and would often cause other systems in the ship to fail when used, such as the reflex cannon. Later on in the Macross Saga, the ship was refitted with an energy barrier that surrounded the entire ship, completely protecting it from enemy fire. However, the energy issues were still not totally solved, and this system could be easily overloaded with enough firepower, which would result in a chain reaction leading to a massive explosion. The only time we saw this happen, it wiped out everything in a 25-mile radius, including an entire city. To be fair though, I'm pretty sure the ship was in Canada at the time of the blast. Overall, while there still might be some capabilities of the SDF-1 that we don't know about, as at its heart, it's still an alien ship, it wasn't invincible. It took a lot of hits from enemy fire in battle and had structural flaws, such as its radar tower mounted atop the ship, which the Zentradi were able to target and take out at one point. But here's the thing about the SDF-1. Its best offensive and defensive weapons were not inbuilt hardware. The ship had a military base on board, which included 11,000 troops and personnel and 1,500 pilots. In other words, the ship housed a small air force. An aircraft carrier was built into the ship, which was used to launch hundreds of different Veritech fighter jets, drones, and other aircraft into battle. It was these aircraft that were truly relied on to act as the SDF-1's weapons, both in attacking targets and defending the ship. While this hippie douche was macking on his girl, my boy Rick was flying dangerous combat missions in his Veritech fighter to protect the people aboard the SDF-1 and, by extension, humankind. Long Dick Rick is a straight savage legend. If you got something to say to him, you got something to say to me. He's a goddamn war hero. Back on track, the Veritech fighters were super dynamic aircraft and were able to transform into battloids in combat, whether in space or on planetary surfaces. And additionally, the SDF-1 stored about 150 destroids, or non-transformable battloids, aboard as well. So yes, the SDF-1 was a powerful ship with powerful weapons in its own right, but it largely served as an aircraft carrier and colony ship, while its fighters did most of the work in battle. Now, I know I really haven't talked much about amenities on the ship, but all I'm really going to say there is that there was a full city within the ship, which had most of the amenities anyone would desire, from restaurants to entertainment venues to a TV studio that could broadcast Minmay's lovely song throughout the cosmos over and over and over again.
Stage fright, go away. This is my big day.
Let me know if you like that song down below. I want to know if anybody actually does. Anyways, that's the video. Thank you, Barry Ben, for inspiring it. I really appreciate your dedication in making the suggestion over and over again and watching our videos and commenting. If you like the video, please do give it a big thumbs up. The rest of you, let me know in the comments below if you've ever seen the show and what you think about it. Remember to subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.